The gastrointestinal tract has a nervous system entirely of its own. It's called as the enteric nervous system. Enteric nervous system. It lies entirely in the wall of the gut, beginning at the esophagus and extending all the way to the anus. And there are about 100 million neurons in the enteric nervous system. It's equal to the number in the entire spinal cord. The highly developed enteric nervous system is essential in controlling gastrointestinal movements and secretion. The enteric nervous system is composed of the outer plexus, and the inner plexus. The outer plexus lies between the longitudinal and circular muscles. It's called as the myenteric plexus or Orbach's plexus. The inner plexus is called the submucosal plexus or Meissner's plexus. This lies in the submucosal layer. The nervous connection within and between the two is given in the next slide. The myenteric plexus shows mainly gastrointestinal. Myenteric plexus controls gastrointestinal movements. Submucosal plexus controls the gastrointestinal secretion and blood flow. The myenteric plexus, it will control the peristaltic movement of the gut. The submucosal contains the gastrointestinal secretions, and the extrinsic sympathetic and parasympathetic fibers that connect to both the myenteric and submucosal plexus are found. So there are the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems connect to the submucosal and myenteric plexus. Although the enteric nervous system can function on its own independently of these extrinsic nerves, stimulation by the parasympathetic and sympathetic system can enhance or inhibit the gastrointestinal functions. Now when we look at the figure, look at this. So this is the submucosal plexus, this is a myenteric plexus, and they are controlled by the sympathetic and parasympathetic, which can enhance or inhibit the activities. Now there are sensory nerve endings that originate in the gastrointestinal epithelium or gut wall. They will send efferent nerve fibers to both the plexus of the enteric nervous system as well as the prevertebral ganglia of the sympathetic nervous system and to the spinal cord and in the vagus nerves all the way to the brain system. These sensory nerves can elicit local reflexes within the gut wall itself and still other reflexes that are relayed to the gut from either the prevertebral ganglia or basal regions of the. This means that there are many nerve endings here in the epithelium. These are connected all to the sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Not only that, there is connections to the prevertebral ganglion, spinal cord and the brainstem. That's all. Now, the myenteric plexus consists of a linear chain of interconnecting neuron that is connected that extends to the entire interconnecting neurons, which extends the entire length of the gastrointestinal tract. Because the myenteric plexus extends all the way along the intestinal wall and because it lies between the longitudinal and circular layers of the intestinal smooth muscle, it is concerned with the muscle activity of the length of the gut, along the length of the gut. When the plexus is stimulated, it will cause contraction of the gut wall and will increase intensity of rhythmical contraction and slightly increased rate of rhythm of contraction and increased velocity of excitatory waves along the gut wall, causing rapid movement of the gut peristaltic waves. Now, myenteric plexus should not be considered entirely as excitatory because some of the neurons are inhibitory. Their nerve fibers secrete an inhibitory transmitters called as vasoactive intestinal polypeptide or some other inhibitory peptide. The resulting inhibitory signals are useful for inhibiting some of the intestinal sphincter muscles that impede the movement of food along with the successive segments of the gastrointestinal tract like pyloric sphincter, which controls the emptying of stomach into the duodenum, and the sphincter of the ileocecal valve, which controls the emptying of the small intestine into the cecum. Now, the submucosal plexus, in contrast to the myenteric plexus, is concerned with controlling function of the inner wall of each minute segment of the intestine. Here, it will have sensory signals originate from the gastrointestinal epithelium and are integrated into the submucosal plexus to help control the local intestinal secretions, absorption, contraction of the submucosal muscle that causes infoldings of the gastrointestinal mucosa. So, this is the way how the different neurons are controlling the gut region. Now, there are many type of neurotransmitters that are synthesized by the or secreted by the enteric nervous system, like acetylcholine, norepinephrine, then adenosine triphosphate, dopamine, cholecystokinin, etc. There are many different types of neurotransmitters that are synthesized by these neurons. Now, the nervous control, along with the nervous control, there is the neural as well as hormonal control of the digestive system. Now, before that, when parasympathetic and sympathetic nerves control the intestinal motility and secretion of the gastric enzymes, these together will modify the coordinated rhythm and frequency, that is coordinated motor activity also. So, an excitatory wave that is called as basic electrical rhythm determines the rhythm and frequency of the gastric contraction. It originates from the pacemaker in the longitudinal muscles of the upper stomach. Okay, so that is also to be added here. Now, coming to the gastrointestinal hormones. The gastrointestinal hormones are the hormones secreted by the gastrointestinal tract. They include gastrin, secretin, androgesterone, cholecystokinin, pancreozymin, diokinin, villikinin, enterokinin, gastric inhibitory peptide, and vasoactive intestinal peptide, motilin, chymodenin. So, these are some of the gastrointestinal hormones. Coming to gastrin. Gastrin is not in fact a single hormone. Okay, it's a family of 6 structurally similar polypeptides. They fall into 2 chemical groups, that is little gastrin, which is called as G17, and big gastrin, that is G34. The former has 17 amino acid residues and G34 has 34 amino acid residues. Gastrin is secreted by pyloric and duodenal mucosa. So, there are 2 kinds of gastrin, stomach gastrin and intestinal gastrin. In general, the gastrin produces excitatory effects and governs the balanced production of HCl. It stimulates the secretion of pepsin and hydrochloric acid, which promotes the secretion of bicarbonates by pancreas and liver. It will constrict the lower esophageal sphincter and increase the frequency and velocity of the basic electrical rhythm. It enhances the motility of gastrointestinal tract and relaxes pyloric and ileocecal sphincters. The higher concentration of hydrochloric acid inhibits and low concentration stimulates the gastric secretion. Coming to the next, this is gastric secretion. This is the vagus stimulation. You have food here. So the secretory fibers will stimulate this region, gastric phase. That is local nervous secretory reflexes, vagal reflexes will stimulate. Gastrin instamen stimulation occurs. The cephalic phase through the vagus system. Parasympathetics excite the pepsin and acid production. Intestinal phase is occurring by the nervous mechanism and hormonal mechanism. Secretin. Secretin is produced by the duodenal and jejunal mucosa. It counters the effect of gastrin. It relaxes the lower esophageal sphincter, inhibits the secretion of gastric juice, decreases the motility of GI tract or gastrointestinal tract, and stimulates the secretion of primary pancreatic juice, intestinal juice and bile. The primary pancreatic juice has low enzyme content but has high level of sodium bicarbonate. It's significant for the neutralization of chyme. So you can imagine the food when it is ingested. First it will reach the stomach, right? Now in the stomach, through the stimulation, the sight of food or anything will stimulate the brain to that is, the information will pass through the nervous system and it will reach the stomach. And then stomach will be that is stimulated to secrete the gastrin. So this gastrin will be secreted by the mucosal layers in the pyloric stomach and duodenal mucosa. So here there is two type of gastrin. So we can say that pyloric region is related to the stomach. So it is called stomach gastrin. While the duodenal mucosa, when it secretes gastrin, is called intestinal gastrin. So this will have enhanced excitatory effect and governs balance production of the hydrochloric acid. So it will, when gastrin is produced, it will stimulate the secretion of pepsin and hydrochloric acid. This will promote the pancreas to secrete bicarbonate. So it's simultaneously it is stimulating hydrochloric acid production as well as its bicarbonate production by the pancreas and liver, and it will constrict the esophagus. So once the food is entering into the stomach, the gastrin will be produced and it will constrict or reduce the size of the esophagus. So more food entering into the stomach is prevented. So it will it will constrict the esophagus sphincter and will cause the basic electrical rhythm frequency will be increased. So this will start the contraction of the gastric contraction will begin, and there will be mobility or the movement in the gastrointestinal tract is enhanced, and it will release the sphincter muscles in the pyloric region. Pyloric region is the end part of the stomach region. So slowly that food from the stomach will be initiated to move into the pyloric region, then into the intestinal region. Again from their region it will be forced to move to the ileocecal sphincter. So the earlier food that has passed, that will be taken into the large intestine through the ileocecal sphincter, that is region. Then when the HCl, when it is produced in high amount, will stop the gastrin production. So further gastrin will be stopped by the high amounts of hydrochloric acid. Now secretin, again the food is entering into the small intestine. So there the duodenum and the jejunal mucosa will produce secretin. This will be having opposite effect of the gastrin, and what will happen, it will relax the esophagus sphincter. So more food from the esophagus will enter into the stomach, and that will prevent the gastric juice and to stop the gastric juice secretion, and it will decrease the mobility of the gastrointestinal tract, and will stimulate the secretion of the pancreatic juice, and this will produce the pancreatic juice will be abundant in sodium bicarbonate. It will help